Alright, hello everyone, and welcome back to another replay cast. Haven't done one of those in a while, but you know, why not? So, what do we have here? We have a tournament game of Wolves versus Feanor, with Feanor playing one of his 4 mech decks. He sent in 4 mech decks. This is a hardened tournament on a bootcamp server, so of pretty decent players, but like the tournament doesn't allow like quote unquote top tier players to play in, such as me. At the same time, also not like complete new players, right? Anyway, so Feanor sent in, every player had to send in 4 decks, and Feanor sent in 4 mech decks, all 4 of which contain Germany. So we have Eurocore mech, Dutch German mech, Lancet mech, and I believe Blue mech, and this should be Dutch German mech. Yep. Wolves is playing Baltic Front. All right. On Punchbowl. Mech on let's just get this rolling. I still haven't figured out this map. Oh, this is actually not the deployment yet. I haven't really figured out this whole map still. It is such a weird map. Baltic Front is certainly very good on this map. With being very wide means you can make good use of your maneuverability. Spikes are gonna be incredibly strong in mid. Obviously also here, but especially in mid, spikes are gonna be really useful. So in these scenarios, I'd like to just if I'm playing Baltic Front, I don't mind just going for the town, because you're gonna have so much easier time to defend this town. And recently I started doing, instead of just driving straight in this line towards Bravo, I started driving down. I mean, of course I'm still gonna send something here, but I started driving down with my main force down this road here, then attacking from this side, because in the event of the opponent pushing my 2-pointer, I can also more easily reroute units from Bravo to here. And I suppose if I was gonna push here with my main force, I would have to drive down here, and it's gonna take a much longer time. Plus, depending on how it works, if should the opponent like give this up more or less, I could also, once I get this, much more quickly try to put on pressure onto this side, and his reinforcement towards this part of Delta, and my 2-pointer, in case he drove down here, then I can basically cut down his forces here from the reinforcements, and in the long run have an easier time of pushing him out of Charlie. Sometimes you also see people actually pushing down this straight road to Golf to a spawn push. TechB very much likes doing that, and did it successfully many times. And where you push down here with all your force, really, you basically completely ignore this side. You push down here with all your force, and this force allows you to put on pressure in here while not being completely exposed. And if your opponent is very light on this or doesn't react fast enough, you can just send in wheeled infantry into this town. And then of course there's 2-point pushes. If Genghis gets into here, this can be so awkward to get rid of, but at the same time it can also be awkward to defend, if that makes any sense. Though you have to be very careful of tanks shooting your reinforcements here. Because they do have line of sight onto this, and if there's like 1 or 2 wilks, they will just constantly shoot your stuff that is driving there. So that can be very annoying, but at the same time the line of sight here is just so weird that suddenly you get attacked or shot at by fire support and you don't even realize. Alright, enough of that. We have the first engagement here. Feanor basically ignoring. Oh no, he's not ignoring, but he's just taking this road probably. Although he might also push for Charlie, I don't remember. Or I don't know, I should say. Genghis going very heavy here. 2 M1 Wilks, Erikoi Sissi, 6 squads of Yakari in a BTR-50, an Osa AK, and an MS-17 with what I presume are Fagots. We have Husaren, Lux, but mostly infantry based. You can also see here that Feanor tends to be like very wide. He, at least not in the opener, I think, does very massively concentrated pushes, but likes to just send a small force basically everywhere. Although it actually looks like he's just completely ignoring Bravo. So scratch what I said. The carry here with the Wilks should not have an issue. The Pentagrams are gonna be the only real threat here. Potentially. Other than that, it should be easy peasy for Genghis. There's an escort coming. There's a peon PSV getting shot by the Milan 2 infantry squads as well as the Marder 183s. Marder 183s are like, you never want to use this in unspec, but in mech if you can fit it in, it can certainly be quite strong, especially since it can one-shot. One-shot? No, it can't one-shot. I guess it must have been hit before. The peon PSV has 11 front armor, right? Syria coming in. I presume for maybe the Gepard. It's the only thing I can think of because I don't think he spotted that Leopard 2A1 already. The escort can get some rockets off. The Ericos are not in position yet, neither is the Osa. So it's gonna slow them down and allow those Mother ones to come in. And if those carry Pentagrams 90, then this could take much longer time than it originally should have been. Yeah, it does. There's KTs though. If those can catch the escort on the side, the escort is just gonna get melted. Spike here getting a shot onto the 2A1. It does get side shot to the one shot to the side of 2A1. And this is a side shot, so the 2A1 got dealt with. It's very important because that means that just a lot of KTs can deal with most of what's coming here. But it doesn't look like those KTs are heading for Charlie. More reinforcements. So Genghis is still investing here. There's a peace run coming in. One of the Wilks gets it once, down to 3 HP. The other one is to the full HP. There's still one Pentagram 90 squad left. There's too much going on. Syria coming in here, getting one missile off. I think it didn't hit, but the Gepard got killed, presumably by those spikes. So Feanor is just moving over the open without really any smoke or anything. He does have a mortar, but didn't use it at all on the right side. And also here just moving the infantry out in the open attack, moving without a fire support. Very dangerous. But it also means that the single spike, even though it's empty, basically at least halted the push for now. And the MS-17, if it doesn't get too close to those Fliegerfaust, which he probably doesn't quite know are there, could just mop this whole thing up. Pentagrams now just walked into the town because there was presumably nothing at this edge, and the MX-13 with its crazy rate of fire doing a lot of fire support. Meanwhile on the left side, all the infantry died here, meaning the M1 can't really push up anymore. That's really bad. As if there's one thing when you just solely rely on Yakari 90, you will also have to have those Wilks around all the time to deal with those vehicles, because Yakari 90, once they're not calm anymore, just are not very consistent dealing with enemy vehicles. At the very least, if those vehicles have a lot of DPS. Fliegerfaust misses the Hawk. Hawk misses the infantry squad because it died already. And that MS-17 just mobs up the remaining infantry. Hopefully he realizes that there is a Fliegerfaust too. Those KKKs should probably ideally be positioned in this area so they can stop Pentagrams if they want to move up. Good on him for turning off the rifle on the spikes so they don't just reveal their position to Pentagrams. KT is just gonna sneak through here. They must have still been unspotted. They also haven't fired anything just yet. And Wilk firing in. Okay, finally, hopefully some supplies coming in for that Wilk. It's gonna be, it was on 3 HP, now 2 HP for quite a while. Finally pushing. I don't know why he didn't push up the town earlier. He started with 6 squads, so he could have tried to drive 2 of those in there actually, and that would have made things a lot easier and allowed his Fagot to also maybe move up a bit, get a spike in here, and then snipe reinforcements. And get more line of sight and more angles to fire from. The Lux is still up here and could just drive around, and the infantry squad in Alpha is still in the open. 2 more Hawks coming in. There's still no additional AA other than those Fliegerfaust 2. Good use of the Syria. It only killed an MX-13, but for 1, that can still do damage. And 2, if your Syria is not doing anything, and you know that as of now your opponent had no ASF and you're pretty sure there's no AA, there's a fairly low chance of, you know, you getting punished for taking such a small kill. Suiciding those KKKs is, it's not that big of a deal anymore since those Pentagrams got dealt with, but it was unnecessary. At least if you wanted to probe with your XA180, but keep those KKKs behind. They're quite useful. But this means the town is basically empty. And this is something that you have to keep in mind. Sometimes when you reroute your forces, or when you're focused too much here, you can't just let this sit there. What I mean with that is just no sentence with no real sense. What I mean with that is you have to keep in mind that just you have no control over this, right? You have spikes here, but nothing stops Feanor from just moving infantry into here. So this is something that you have to be very careful about. Good on him for moving up those sissy. He definitely, if you have control over this, you want stuff in here. You want a scout here and an ITGM squad here, ideally. And that's why I presume he's moving up the sissy here. You gain so much line of sight there. And now he spots the other one, which he didn't before, for example. Feanor kept this with the infantry squad. Fairly obvious position, but luckily it comes with a base defense already. So what's going on here? Still 3 Pentagrams, 90 squads. The guy apart from the start, from the opening, is still alive, and 3 mother ones. And that stopped that is holding 2 M1 Wilks, an ITO 90, and 2 Yakari squads. Feanor getting a lot of value off his stuff here. Those 2 M2 Wilks, that's 170 points. And of course all the infantry he killed, the Osa he killed. Going actually very well for Feanor down here, but he also at the same time wasn't able to make good use of his stuff up there. Yet nonetheless, he still has a lot of forces left over compared to what Genghis has. He literally could just drive the looks down this road, and carry KK, unless it gets really lucky, wouldn't be able to stop it. KT's did get fined as look at this name. It's Raikkonen, F1 driver and reigning Ferrari world champion. Don't just drive into the looks. You have to unload early enough to spot it, or yeah, otherwise you're just gonna lose it because of the stealth. That's a completely unnecessary loss, and he should have realized that it was there, because I think the looks was killing something else earlier as well. But at least Genghis now has the kitty here, so the looks shouldn't, if it's just fast moving down there, just be able to get into the home zone for nothing. And now he also has base defense in the form of air decoys, as well as moving the CV into the town, into cover. Looks will get bombed. It might get out fast enough. Yeah, it will. If you're bombing such a low armor target with 2 bombers, then with the second bomber you should probably ideally just go for where you think they might try to evade, and not fire the same position, because 1 bomb will already kill it with ease. Right now there's a next push. He has to make sure that he deals with that Mother one. That Wick is not close enough. Because Mother one has massive DPS, especially given that it's on elite. So there's a lot, actually against quite accuracy. You can see 50% accuracy with the highest rate of fire autocannon in the game. Killed effectively 1 Yakari squad in terms of HP, but not in terms of, you know, actual units. So if your Genghis here, you now want to split them and retreat at 1 HP squad. It's just a 10 HP, it's just a 10 point squad, but you already have supply drugs still in the game. So you might as well, if you keep using them, you might as well send one here to repair the 1 squad. 2 YPRs with either Stortruppen or Grenadiers. Could be either, given that they're both on veteran here. If I had to guess, it's Grenadiers, since there's 2 of those transports for the 2 Stortruppen. Still not all too much happening here, but Feanor seems like he still wants to push here. The Pion PSV was able to finish off that Milan squad, or kill it in the first place. It has only 2 HP. AT has the range advantage over the Mother one, so the Mother one can't fire back. And a KT with the 4 AP will even pen it at max range, even at the front. Syria circling here, but there's no tank here. It's infantry you have to worry about. A Eurogan would make easy work of this, but it's a 120 point investment. But you have to push up with your Wilks. There you go. But now you have to be careful that those Pentagrams don't double tap. There's a double squad, 2 squads here, and they will just 2-shot your Wilks. And those Pentagrams are panicked and shaken, so they won't have the best accuracy, and there's the Hawk coming in. Peace Run coming in for the Wilks. They will need a double tap to kill one. Those 2 Jäger squads on veteran will easily deal with those Panzer Yakari. He's trying lost line of sight because those Pentagrams died. There's a 2A1 coming in now, but there's also 2 more Stortruppen. Yeah, this is not amazing for Genghis. He still has those two works, which is good, but just keeps losing infantry without gaining a lot of ground. He does have the town, and he should definitely get a spike in here. For sure. Even if it doesn't snipe reinforcements, it can snipe those tanks that might show their side in this area. So while you're sitting back here, you can still have an influence over the targets there. And the fact that this looks as alive is also quite annoying. He also could have considered getting a KT here, given the fact that he has a Fagot here and works here. If the Gepard gets into line of sight of the KT, with KT I mean the MI8 TKT, you might be able to kill that. Jäger moved up. Like I said, did kill that Panzerjäger squad, and if he had those two more KRKKs still left, then it probably would be easier dealing with them. The CC on 1 HP weren't turned off, so they're gonna get killed by the Jäger. That was avoidable, I think, although at the same time the CC had to move back, so maybe he knew anyway that they were there. P on PSV dealing with that AMX 13, that's good. Still very light on the defense CC, and I believe those spikes will have issues firing anything in here. They're fairly deep in the forest, so they won't have line of probably won't have line of sight of anything that is in this area here, unless he moves it up. So he's incredibly light on the defenses here. KT coming in with Panzerjäger squad most likely. Still looks here. 2 2-1s now. Christopher God, it does have 16 AP, so it can one-shot them, which is nice. And the Reactor squad trying to sneak around. Leopard 1 CV. Yeah, you don't want to keep fighting in the forest against mech. Baltic Front can do that to a certain extent, but it can't keep up with the mech deck. This is one of the best unspec decks to do that, maybe even the best. But against the pure mech deck, you're gonna have a very hard time. Those veteran and elite infantry squads, it's just too good. But that 2-1 is just moving up recklessly and got destroyed by those Wilks without getting any hit on them. The Hawk getting out again. I don't think he has seed in the deck. If he had, then he could try running that and get rid of the Gepard. Only one of them is firing, but they're still getting good work on the Grenadiers. But he should probably move them up, even though the AMX 13 will fire. Only one of the Yakari squads is firing back, and that's not very good. Now the AMX 13 can fire anyway. Still nothing really happening here. The Jäger got dealt with by the MI17. That's nice. He should again consider maybe getting an MI17. He still has one here. Move it in this area. If you use it from this position, maybe that, although that's a bit more scary. But in this area, and you have a spike in this town, or had one in here still, then the Gepard won't be able to shoot at your helicopter without revealing itself. And there's the I-90 getting fired at. Probably because it shot at the peace run earlier, or maybe an escort, either of that. Anyways, it fired, and Feanor knows where it is, so it's murdering it. Telak moving up. Also, another thing is Genghis could try probing in this area. Although I could see why he didn't want to do that, because it's this deep forest, and again, forest fights are not what we want to do. However, if he has tanks or something in here, P on PSP again can sideshot reinforcements and tanks, and etc, etc. But given how long this engagement has been going on, I think at a certain point the Jurgen would have definitely been a much better decision than just keep sending in infantry. Against the mech deck, if you're the Leopard 1 providing fire support to CV, against the mech deck, especially in the opener, yes, you can. If you overwhelm them a bit, you can win the engagement, but in the long run, you're gonna have much time. The M1 was just sitting out here in the open. I assume he called it out in reinforcements, as reinforcements, and just forgot about it, which can happen. Happens to me, happens to everyone. Still, completely unnecessary loss. But stuff like that happens when you're busy on one side and you micro on the other side. And this is also where mech deck can be really strong. In mech you have so many cheap units, so many cheap self-sufficient units, that you can operate on a wider front much more easily. Not only because you also have access to more cheap units, to more slots in your deck, but also because most of your units are not really that valuable on their own. Like a single unit isn't. It's you see so many 30, 40, 50 point units with a 2-1 scattered here and there that you have a lot less single high value targets on the field. So an ATGM playing snipe like that is usually not as strong against you as it is against the enemy. So this is where on a big map like this, even though the mech deck has a big speed disadvantage, it has an advantage in that sense, is that once a front line is established and you have safe reinforcement routes, you can really make much more use of having access to a much wider array of units for certain different situations. So seems like Feanor is counter pushing in mid, or actually who's doing the smoke here? I don't know. I think it's Feanor. I didn't pay attention. Maybe I should have. Definitely should have. The Feanor is also smoking here. I don't know if he... Sometimes you can just smoke and make your opponent think you're pushing there. I'm not sure what those... I guess he doesn't want the Fagots to snipe the Gepards, etc. that are gonna drive up there. But yeah, once you're at established front lines, right? You don't have the shock or speed advantage in the opener with your motorized units, with your KTs, etc. And your opponents keeps reinforcing there while you also keep reinforcing there. Against the mech deck in these forest fights, that's the point when you want to buy a Eurogan or something like that to even the fight. Because one-on-one, if both of you just keep sending an equal amount of points into this fight, when equal players are fighting each other, then the mech player will win. He just has the advantage in these low range close quarter fights, especially when he's in a defensive. And that's why you definitely need that Eurogan. It's gonna make it so much easier. That's what the mech deck, unless it's Eurocon mech or blue mech, that's what the enemy doesn't have. That's what's gonna help you massively. So nothing crazy happening here. I'm surprised to see a Gepard A2 here, but I guess he just got fed up by the planes and the helicopters just wrecking him. MiG-29 fired 2 missiles at a peace shrine and killed it. KWS was not shooting back. Either he didn't see it fast enough or was just turning back, and it's always a bit frustrating. Eriko is sneaking around together with the Panzer Yakari that are also still alive. And now it's Genghis in the defensive. And it's hordes of veteran infantry coming in. And those Yakari, they were too far back, so they couldn't really get a lot of fire onto those Jäger. And once those Jäger are in the town, even though one squad is panicked, I'm pretty sure they will get rid of those Yakari. Then again, there are those KTs, which will get one shot by the Grenadiers and Jäger, I should say. And there's still those two empty works, so... Weren't there 2 squads of Stottruppen earlier? Did they get murdered so quickly? I guess by the Mi-17, that would make sense. So that really helped him. And there's the Gepard shooting the Mi-17. Alright, I'm back with the cast after 20 minutes. Which I didn't realize because OBS has this cool pause function, but I have no clue what I was talking about. I remember that I said Eurogan would have been very helpful. Which it doesn't really need anymore, I guess. Most of the attack has been repelled. Those Jäger won't do too much to the Wilks, and the Milan 2 hits the M1 Wilk at the front. 2 shots in the Wilk instead, of course. He realizes that he got hit, which is good. Second missile does not connect. Still nothing really in the top. And it doesn't look like that Feanor is too worried about preparing for a push in Bravo. Eriko has some Panzer Yakari. Eriko's moving, Panzer Yakari are not. If you send something around the flank, you can always just shift move it until it's like close to the vicinity. You don't want it to stop accidentally in the middle of its way. base defense on both sides, trying to prevent base cheese, especially infantry right at the spawn point can be so dangerous. Gas is I was gonna say it's not particularly well protected. They could easily something drive through here if he's not careful enough, like a Lux or something. Yakari won't stop it, and there's nothing in range to shoot at it either. And in general, I'm not a huge fan of Jeep CVs. I can understand that sometimes they're necessary, and I still use them. But I think if you're using Jeep CVs, don't put them in such obvious positions. And never ever leave a Jeep CV in your base. So Yakari, those Jäger were doing quite some damage still, even though they were outnumbered 2-1. They still managed to nearly kill those two Jäger. Although I guess maybe that mortar there helped. Right, now 2 more R2s with Pentagrams coming up. There's still 2 Stotrippen squads, so they could still very much attack happen here. However, those spikes have 21 AP, and that means they can one-shot the Martyr 2, which is quite a big deal, which is quite annoying when you're playing deck and rely a lot on a Martyr 2. There's another Erikois flying around. Personally, I wouldn't do that in a situation like this. While Genghis is ticking and has the point advantage at this moment. I'm not sure if this is the right time to send a Puma out. Also, if you're just circling with ASAPs and you have 2 ASAPs, don't circle both ASAPs at the same time. Of course, if you want to attack an enemy plane that you spotted, then of course send all your ASAPs you have. But if you're just circling them defensively, only circle one. Because if you circle both, and your opponent saw that both of them got evac because of no fuel left, then that means there's a time window in which neither of which the opponent knows, okay, there won't be an ASF coming because neither of those ASFs are ready. Unless of course you have a third ASF ready, but in this situation it's just assume you don't, right? So that's why if you're only circling it only as like a deterrence, to show your opponent, hey, I have an ASF, fuck off with your planes, then only circle one. Meaning that you always have another one ready if need be, and if your other one is evacing. And if you spot an enemy plane, you can, assuming you hotkeyed both of them, just tap the one key for me, for example, and then both planes will come out and go for the enemy plane. And now the Syria is defenseless should a KWS come in. Puma did do 2 damage to the... Lux did do 2 damage to the Puma. I wonder if Genghis noticed that. I don't think the Lux should be able to get a shot on the gas without the Yakari at least having a chance to shoot first. Unless, of course, the Lux drives down here and then up. I mean, I guess if the Lux drives down here, notices there's nothing there, then maybe he'll just drive into this vicinity here. So I guess there's a chance something like that could happen. And there's 3 new Stotrip 95 squads on veteran. They're very dangerous. And as new 2A1, so there's 2 2A1s again. And that Gepard is still alive. Jäger squads as well. Fliegerfaust. The town is just very light most of the time. Just a Husaren squad and now a Milan 2 squad. But earlier there was also just a Husaren squad. It's interesting how little the Feanor seems to value the town. Although now he moves up with 2 Jäger squads, so fuck me, I guess. But it seems like those Martyr 2s are not gonna go for the town. It seems like Feanor will push Charlie. And Genghis seems to realize just that. The question is, was it fast enough? There's still the Pion PSV, which definitely should at least move up at the edge here so it can fire better than anything coming in here. Because I'm not sure, given how deep it is in the forest, either it won't be able to shoot at all in here, or at certain being in a forest, even though you're close to the edge and can shoot at this area, it still affects the maximum range. So the way this pure PSV is positioned, it could also be that it can only shoot in like this angle into the open field or something. In any case, he should definitely move it closer to the edge. The spike should be able to hopefully fire in here as well. But nonetheless, there's not too many defenses here. And keep in mind, the Pion PSV does have 10 front armor, which means it does get one shot by the Milan 2 actually. I thought it had 11. So it's not the most tanky unit. And with those AMX 13s or something, if it gets spotted, the 2A1 won't have too much trouble dealing with it. And that spike has been empty for quite a while, I think. And that empty supply truck also has been sitting there for quite a while, I think. Super Prima is still making its way with the Erikois Raya Yakari. So it seems like Feanor, and that's very good idea, and can catch many players off guard and can be quite troublesome, especially when you're playing decks that require more micro with like more high value single units. When you're playing a mech deck, what you can do is, assuming you get to be into the positions, you know, it's not like you can just do it all the time, it's easier said than done. But if you're in a position like this where you have a decent amount of forces on 2 fronts, and then attacking on both front lines at the same time, can overload many other players. There's the Hawks coming and the Syria. Gabbard gets to fire on 1 Hawk, isn't able to finish it. Hawks don't kill anything really. MiG-29 kill the KWS kill the Syria. Syria didn't manage to kill anything either. But those Sotrippen get mostly stopped, so that's good. And without Sotrippen, those Leopards won't do anything. Gepard got 3-2 damage on the MiG-29 because they didn't get evac early enough. In the meantime, those Jäger also moved up into this town, firing in here. On the top, just some small skirmishes, nothing just yet, but the Feanor is about to push. Looks still sitting here defensively, could potentially get some nasty stuff done. Those M2, M1 rigs going very, very dangerously far back, which I'm not a fan of. Yes, they're 4 HP, but you still have to deal with what's coming up here. I guess those 2 1s did get some shots on the M1 rig, which is why they're both so low. And that's very annoying. And this is where not having ammunition in the Fagot or not having a spy can be very annoying, because now those 3 1s will not get side shot here. Those M1 rigs just shot at the M113, meaning they will have to reload, but there's nothing close enough to make use of that. Stormtrooper got basically killed, they're down on 1 HP, but those 2 ones are advancing and finished off one of the Wilks. There we go. Feanor just relentlessly attacking other than genghiswolves. If genghiswolves would have been in this situation of Feanor, I think he would have definitely retreated once his Stormtrooper were dead. Which, in a vacuum, can of course be the right decision, but in this instance, of course, wasn't. Whether it was because Feanor was just aggressive, or because he knew that there was no infantry left, I don't know. Of course, if there was like suddenly 1 or 2 Panther Yakari squads sitting right there, could have meant the end for those Leopards. And now, here's another thing. The Leopard 2's Genghis knows they're shooting. Now push up with your tanks. Yes, your M1 Wilk is damaged, but they're shooting at something else. They're reloading while not looking at your Wilk. Now you can push up with your M1 and M2 Wilk and attack them. But I guess he's probably too focused on the attack that's happening up here. And that's why just having a shit ton of stuff everywhere and just attack moving everything can sometimes work out if we just have enough stuff. And and he attacked at the wrong time, but those 2 A1s actually don't have line of sight. The M2 Wilk gets 1 shot and the M1 rig the other one. 2 A1 dies. M2 Wilk still on full HP, so it can tank a shot off the 2 A1. It just has to make sure that, okay, that the M1 Wilk doesn't get fired. But both 2 A1s are dead. Those M2 Wilk is gonna die to the Milan 2 because he wasn't careful enough, or probably just too busy at the top, which is why he's also getting attacked and losing an M1 rig potentially to a 2A1, unless, no, the M1 rig kills the 2A1. And now there's just a shit ton of IVs, but also a lot of infantry. But against infantry, Genghis just currently doesn't necessarily have the fire support. He has to be very careful with those KTs. They're crucial here. But those Marder 2s are just gonna murder them and eat them like it's nothing. Meanwhile, on the south again, the CV by the way died, which I completely failed to mention. Those Jäger are still alive. Would be good for Feanor if we could retreat them. They're veteran and they're 15 points each, so they're not the cheapest unit on the field. But I think he doesn't really care too much. Or maybe he just wants to keep the pressure up. That's very valid. But this also means that he can, what he seems to be doing here, just move up with the M113s and the infantry squads. And it seems like the looks, given that it lost most of its ammo and is on veteran, killed the KT that was originally here. And that could provide... And it could be a very, very big mistake, because that could open up Feanor just driving up here and there and then just down there. Although then again, those Jäger seems to be just moving up there. What I was gonna say is, if those Jäger in those M113A3 G1s, it's not what they're called, but whatever, just drive up there, then the KT could just mop them up, but doesn't seem like that's what they're doing. Actually, the KT could very much still kill those Jäger if those Jäger are moving up there. Meanwhile, infantry, M1 Wilk and PSV still alive. The KTs got mopped up, probably by those Marder 2s. Maybe the Pantograns, maybe the Stormtrooper, maybe the YPRs. Who knows? But they're both... The Wilk is very low, and the Marder 2 is actually quite dangerous to the PSV, because 10 front armor... Oh, he's firing position with the Marder 2s? That's... I mean, you can, I guess, sort of stun a PSV, but if you hit only the front armor, it's not going to do too much damage. A PSV got probably a retreat function, a retreat command up to this, but given that it's past the slope already, it has to turn around and retreat up there, which means that the Mother 2s could catch that Peon PSV off guard to the side. That's a side shot. Oof, that's, yep. You have to be very, very careful when you're retreating up a slope and you're already past the slope, so your tank has to turn around completely and then drive back and then upwards, which is exactly what happened here. So very unfortunate and bad timing on the Genghis' part. Meanwhile, on the south here, the M2 Wig, like I said, got killed by the Milan 2. The M1 Wig is on full HP again, 2 new Panther squads, but there's already a shit ton of reinforcements coming in from Feanor, and he's just attacking everywhere. He's attacking a town, he's attacking the open field, and Feanor's Genghis is just overwhelmed. He threw away too many cheap units like the KTs. He threw away too many Jägeri instead of reinforcing them, and against the mech deck that you can't do that because you need your units alive. You need to win by micro, not by spamming. You can't out spam your opponent, you can't out attack move your opponent if he's playing mech, and his micro has not been on point, unfortunately. Schumacher and Mühlmeister are on the move. They got down to 5 HP, but the Panzer Jäger squad is also only on 1 HP. And there's a new 2A1 against an M1 Wilk, and the infantry is just getting mobbed up because there's no M1 Wilk supporting them against the vehicles here. Spike here didn't kill either of those Gepards, seemingly didn't have line of sight on the Gepard, so it was mispositioned. Meanwhile, those Panzer Guns got quite some damage by those KTs, and there's the M1 Wilk that is still on 20 HP, and finally there's a supply truck coming out. There was a supply truck for a long time that was empty here, sitting to the spikes, which are also empty and I guess got moved into the town, and nothing happened to them. Again, a Eurogun, once again, just 4 or 5 rockets down here or in this area earlier. Could have at least stunned, and if not help win the engagement, either make the engagement easier or at the very, very least stop and halt the opponent's assault. But once again, there's no Eurogun to be seen. My oh my. Feanor just relentlessly attacking, and he doesn't seem to really care too much about retreating infantry that is on a lead to repair them. Gepard shooting down the Hawk potentially. It's an A2 Gepard, so it has 65% base accuracy, but still does not manage to kill that fucking Hawk. Got stunned, but the Hawk didn't do anything either. Panzergrens killed somehow one of the KTs, which wasn't able to shoot back. Interesting. KT, finally we see a KT, but it's too little too late, and it's just gonna get killed by the Gepard here. Which misses its stinger somehow. Not the second one though. Once again, those MiG-29 circling around. And still no new CV to be seen, but then again, he still has lead and Feanor is not ticking at the moment, so that's probably why he much rather spends the points on units that can fight, which is very much understandable and I can completely get behind. Finally, Erikois managed to get in here. Meanwhile, the Erikois down here, probably together with the Panzer Yakari squad, got killed because, yeah, he just decided to move either both or only the Panzer squad over the open field, got killed by that, and the other squad got killed by this, so that's a lot of points wasted. Meanwhile, the looks here also didn't seem to do all too much. Well, this looks was very, very useful. Now, can this Erikois do something? That could potentially be the game decider, but there's still 7 minutes left in the game. Gepard is still not quite in there because Feanor doesn't seem to be quite sure whether this is safe or not. Oh, those Yakri are just missing. It finally hit. 20 RPM making up for that low accuracy. And the Panzergrens with Mother 1 support just pushing up, and then Wilk once again not supporting, either because he's scared or he's busy on the top. Both of which are, well, the second one is valid, the first one not so much. You know, this is kind of safe because there's a supply truck here. And now it's too late, and the Wilk will die unless it's retreating. Or unless he gets so lucky that the Panzergrens miss their shot on the Wilk at that range. And the Leopard one is not quite moving in because it can't it got told to get in there, but there's a flame, so it moved out automatically. And obviously he doesn't want the Leopard one to be out there in the open. So now it's gonna probably move into like this position here, and then it's gonna countercap the 2-pointer, giving Feanor A+2. Another 2-1 here. Fob, again, barely made use of. Not even 4,000 supply used. A Eurogun would have been very helpful this match. A brief respite. Let's see. PM PSV. Finally moving up. I think it was in this position before and retreated earlier. I'm not sure. KT just wrecked those AMX 13. Now, this is interesting. Genghis actually has a position here. So... oh, he spots the Leopard. That's interesting. Oh, with the BTR 50, of course. And Leopard was stunned, so it couldn't kill the BTR 50. There we go. So this is interesting because this road seems to be safe. So what Genghis could do is get his own CV and place it in Delta, but I think he will have a much harder time defending his CV than Feanor has getting rid of it. PSV got rid of one of the mothers, but it's very dangerous. Because at that range the mother 2, yep, actually gets a good amount of AP. To get 10 AP, it needs to be at something like 700 meter range, so 1225 meter range. It will have 10 AP, so I guess that's what roughly that range, and it was enough to pen the Peon PSV. Hawk coming in again. There's still the Gepard here, which if he isn't careful will fly right over. I guess he's trying to avoid it actively, which is good. But he has to be a bit lucky in order to kill the Leopard 1 if that's what he wants to do with it. Eriko is still sneaking around and about, just not in here. And it's just endless hordes of infantry. Just endless. And I think one big issue, besides of course Jurgen again, he is not making good use of the KTs. Of course it's hard to make use of the KTs if the enemy has high armor autocannons like the Marder 2s around that will just murder your KTs. But in scenarios like that you just have to micro better. As stupid as it sounds. Of course it's not easy to just micro better. But that's how you have to win against the mech deck. The M1 rig, it seemed to be able to retreat in time, but Genghis has complete control over Echo, over the relentless assault. There's a KT sitting there doing nothing. This is hovering high, so it can't be base defense, but in situations like this, you also have to make use of your base defense and use it offensively. But even if he gets rid of the CV here, Feanor will be at a +1. Infantry pushing up finally. But those YPRs could do a lot of damage. Don't underestimate a single Panzer gun squad that's on the lead. Firing gets infantry out in the open. He spots Leopard 1 and kills it, but it still leaves Feanor with a +1. The Eriko squad is still alive here. It went everywhere but this obvious spot. So this is where you want the infantry CV coming in MI-17 trying to drop in there. That's potentially your only hope besides killing the CV, but I don't think if Genghis will have enough time. And he might actually lose his own Jeep CV here if the way this looks. Because if those Marder 1 and 3s just double tap the work, which they won't. Well, eventually will, I guess. And this is basically, as I like to say, it. So this U-Sping board, I don't know why. It's basically over. The GCB will stay alive. And the Erikois, just like the other Erikois, will do basically nothing. Alright, Feanor actually won with the worst KD, which isn't too surprising, but I think it means that he made better use of the units he had, if he won nonetheless. Because even if you look at it at the map in the end, Feanor still was in a better position, I think. So, what went wrong? Well, the opener for Genghis wasn't inherently bad, right? He tried to make use of his speed by pushing the bottom side, the two 1-pointers, which can very much work, but I think what he failed to do, in hindsight, what he definitely should have done is sent one, or ideally like 2 KTs, into the enemy town, because the enemy has no wheeled infantry other than the Husaren. or recon squads, right? And he doesn't have access to elite or shock recon squads, so all he gets are line or like the Husaren or the BGS. So what he should have done is get 2 squads in a KT, try to get into the enemy town, which for 1 denies the enemy the position, and 2 gives you line of sight, which in turn gives you information. And then, together with the other forces that he had, which were much more than Feanor had, try to push the enemy out of the 1-pointer. Now, what happened here was that while he had more forces, I believe, he lost, or didn't win, let's put it that, didn't win the opening engagement. So the big advantage that Feanor had, that Genghis had, for 1 was just more forces, but also just speed, right? But he wasn't able to make advantage of that, so in turn, it ended up becoming a grind, kind of. Both had their positions and were just reinforcing it. I'm doing hand movements here for some reason that you obviously can't see, but anyway. In which scenario, so that leaves you with 2 things left that you need to win against mech. Or let me rephrase, there's several things that an unspec deck has over a mech deck. And if one is speed, and in a certain sense versatility, in a sense that you have access to more helicopter-borne transports, you have wheeled transports, you still have like cheap infantry, whereas mech has the versatility in terms of unit combinations, right? He has access to cheap, and everything is still high of it, like cheap spam infantry, cheap infantry in strong IFVs, expensive infantry in strong IFVs, expensive infantry in cheap transports. That's sort of versatility. While you have the versatility in terms of completely different roles, but you get the point, right? So you have the versatility, mobility. The enemy has individual unit strength in that sense, but in a 1-on-1 grind, you have to either out-micro them or make sense of your versatility, which in this scenario most notably is, for 1, maybe helicopters, which on the bottom would have helped a lot, but also again the Jurgen, or the Finnish, whatever it's called. That you need to even the field. The enemy's infantry has higher vet, significantly higher vet. The enemy transports have a significantly higher veterancy. So you will not win in 1-on-1 fights unless you out-micro your opponent, which is obviously another option, but it's usually harder to do, especially if there's not a lot of room to maneuver like there was in the south. So then you need the RAK 91 to even the playing field and give you a foot. And given the fact that the fob didn't even use up 4,000 of the supply, it was also wasted 75 points. If you start with the fob, then you gotta make use of it, and he didn't make use of it. Sometimes you can make use of it just by helicopters, but he also didn't use a lot of helicopters. He had 1 MS-17, which, again, he also could have tried landing in the opponent town as opposed to your own. And he didn't, so... While the micro, of course, wasn't quite there, neither was it on Feanor's side, but Feanor doesn't need a strong micro to win because he's playing mech. Of course, if you have strong micro and you're playing mech, that's even better, but it isn't as required as it is for other decks. While it's still important, but it's not as important as it would otherwise be, because you can make up with the micro by having these strong, cheap units that you can just attack with, kind of. And Genghis micro just wasn't good enough to win without the use of a Jurgen. Or his overall strategies as well, I guess. But it's kind of a duh, of course, because he lost, right? But I hope I got the point across, as I repeated myself many times, trying to say just one thing. But yeah, if I had to place it on one big mistake, it's just not using the Jurgen. MNRS is incredibly powerful if you have access, or certain MNRS systems are incredibly powerful, and in like these, they were like basically for a big part of them, it was just one battlefield really, and it was the south. There were some skirmishes in the north, but Genghis actually did really well on that and stopped them with just a few key units, spikes, etc., Hawks, P and PSV, and managed to focus on the south, which is not necessarily what you want against a mech deck, but whatever. And which meant that if both are just focused on one side, something like a MLRS, is just incredibly powerful. And I'm very, very certain that Genghis does have this unit in his deck. But yeah, well played by Feanor. His macro game was just better. And yeah. Oh, what I completely failed to mention, and I should have said in the opening, Genghis has his own YouTube channel where he uploads basically all of his games, at least all of his tournament games. I'll link it in the pinned comment, hopefully, if I remember, and in the description maybe as well. I don't know. So check him out if you want to see his perspective and his commentary. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this cast. I'll hopefully do more of these every now and then, because that requires me to not play the game. Jokes aside, it's easier or a guaranteed video for me to upload, so that's always nice. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully see you next time.